gloves, as well as soaps and sanitizers for their use in course of discharging their duties during the period of COVID-19 pandemic. 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the same categories of assistance to the national government administration officers have medical insurance? For example, ensuring they are covered by National Health Insurance Fund during the period of COVID-19 pandemic and thereafter. 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the same category of assistance to the national government administration officers are facilitated with monthly allowances to enable them meet their daily expenses like food, transport, airtime, and other incidental costs while being involved during the pandemic of COVID-19, the period of COVID-19 pandemic, and thereafter while discharging their duties and responsibilities? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, the request will be channeled through the leader of the majority party to the chair of national security. This is a request further by the member for Mwatate, the Honorable Mwadime.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding compulsory leave of Mr. Kevin Lewis Safari, personal employment number *0 5934, ID number 11055915 by the Commissioner General, Kenya Revenue Authority. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Kevin Lewis Safari was working in Kenya Revenue Authority stationed at Times Tower. On 24th April 2020, he was illegally sent home on compulsory leave for a period of 90 days without being given a chance to show cause, and he is at risk of losing his job, considering that Kevin is the only person holding a senior position in government from Mwatate constituency. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the following. Subsection 1. What are the circumstances that led to Mr. Kevin Lewis Safari of personal employment number *0 5634, ID number 11055015, being sent home on compulsory leave for 90 days and by the Commissioner General of the Kenya Revenue Authority? Part 2. When will he be reinstated back to work at the station he was before, including payments of his dues? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so there's those things about quadruple 000 and some.
No, they don't understand. I'm a mathematician.
The Honorable Mwadime is a mathematician and is an active member of the Committee on Pensions. So those who are likely to be liable to pension, like the Honorable Junet, you need to address him with care. Anyway, the Chair of Labour, the Honorable Ali Wario, will be responding. No, there is no support about the request for a statement. The request will be channeled through the Office of the Leader of the Majority. Member for Kiambu, Honorable Jude Jomo. If it's taking too long to come, walk right into the chamber, not with a swag.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was not delaying purposely, but I had to give them time to sanitize. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning regarding taxes allegedly being charged on personal protective equipment, PPEs, by the Kenya Revenue Authority. Honorable Speaker, it is alleged that before the presidential directive on taxation on personal protective equipment were falling under Customs Tariff Code 9018.90, which calls for 16% VAT and 0% import duty. After the Parliament passed the Tax Laws Amendment Bill 2020 to remove taxes on PPEs, KRA, who are relying on a World Bank Customs Organization write-up, classified PPEs under the new tariff code 9307.90, which calls for 14% VAT and 25% taxation on import duty. Going by this new tariff code, KRA argument is that the President and the National Assembly only removed 14% VAT and not 25% taxation on import duty. The National Assembly was so persuasive on cushioning Kenyans against taxes on PPEs to make them more affordable, but they are being made even more expensive by KRA new tariff code 6307.90, therefore defeating the purpose of the new tax law approved by this House. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek for a statement from the chairperson on the following. 1, to confirm that PPEs are still subject to 25% import duty, as Kenya Revenue Authority is alluding. 2, why is the Kenya Revenue Authority's SIMBA system now classifying PPEs under a new tariff code 6307.9 and therefore calling for 0% VAT and 25% import duty on PPEs? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Again, I don't see the Honorable Limo in the chamber. Oh, the Honorable Limo, yes. Is always equal to the task. Honorable Limo, I think you will engage and give an appropriate response when the House reconvenes. Yeah? Very well. Member for Suna West, the Honorable Masara.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of Department Committee of Health regarding measures being put in place to mitigate risk facing residents of border counties with regards to the spread and management of COVID-19. Honorable Speaker, notwithstanding reports that COVID-19 is quickly spreading in border counties, with Migori County having recently registered its first 2 positive cases, some of the residents to these regions have continued to defy most of the Ministry of Health guidelines and rules regarding social distancing, wearing face masks, and crossing the common border within the neighboring counties at will. For instance, Migori County, which has been identified as a high-risk region on matters of COVID-19, is unable to control movement of people across the border with Tanzania because of the porousness of the common border. Honorable Speaker, despite the counties being high-risk region, most of them lack health facilities, equipment, and personnel to effectively handle COVID-19 cases. For instance, Migori County does not have a single intensive care unit, ICU ward. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background that I ask the statement from the chairperson of the Department Committee of Health. In our statement, the chairperson should inform the House on the following. 1, what measures has the government put in place to seal all loopholes that may trigger the spread of the virus in the border counties such as Migori County? 2, what measures is the government putting in place to control movement of people across the porous common border with Tanzania? 3, what measures is the government putting in place to ensure the border counties, particularly Migori County, have the capacity in terms of health facilities, equipment, and personnel to be in a position to effectively handle COVID-19 cases? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, the Chair of Health is in the chamber. I think you'll be able to make a response to that when the House reconvenes.
Thank you.
Very well. Leader Majority.
The Speaker, it's my first time to seek a statement, but because I represent the great people of Garissa Township, Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Energy regarding flooding in Garissa Township constituency occasioned by the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, PLC, KENGEN, opening up its dams. Honorable Speaker, over the years, perennial floods have continued to ravage Garissa County along the areas of Tana River Basin, occasioned by heavy rains and the continuous act of negligence by KENGEN by releasing excess water from its 7 Forks reservoirs. These floods have resulted into the loss of lives, displacement of people, destruction of properties, including farms. It is of this concern that today more than 8,000 households from Iftin, from Bulapunda, Bulashek, Windsor, and Ziwani areas in Garissa town have been affected by the floods and are living in makeshift camps in schools within the town and along the Tana Basin, as depicted and pictured even by the Kenya Red Cross and the government. Honorable Speaker, it's again in this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson, and I don't mind, Honorable Speaker, if I get a written statement as soon as possible from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Energy, on the following. What long-term measures has the government put in place to address the flooding occasioned by the spillage from Masinga Dam into Tana River, thus affecting the Tana River Basin and the Garissa town or Garissa County as a whole? 2, what permanent solution is government putting in place or is underway to prevent the frequent spillage from the Masinga Dam and the Seven Forks dams? 3, could the government construct dikes along the river, particularly where human settlement is established, to prevent flooding? And finally, could the ministry consider constructing more dams to collect the excess water and also compel KenGen to compensate the people affected along the Tana River Basin for the loss of their lives, livestock, farms, and property? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Do I see the chair of Departmental Committee on Energy, Honorable Gikaria? Well, the statement is from the leader of the majority party in his capacity as the member of Parliament for Garissa Township constituency, and therefore the request which he wants in written form will be submitted through his office. From the member for Garissa Town constituency, the request will be submitted through the office of the leader of majority. The other request is from the member for Homa Bay County, the Honorable Nyasuna Wanga. Nyasuna. The Honorable Gladys Nyasuna Wanga. If she's in the other holding place, perhaps she can be notified, the Honorable Wanga. If she may be anywhere in the other holding places, she could be notified that it's at the time to seek the statement. In the meantime, the member for Mukuroine, the Honorable Anthony Kiai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44, subsection 2C, I wish to request the statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Energy regarding the persistent electricity supply outages in Mukuroine constituency. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, electricity is the main source of power in offices, industries, hospitals, and households in this country. However, lack of access to supply of electricity constrains modern economic activities, provision of public services, and quality of life in general. Honorable Speaker, recently, the residents of Mukuroine constituency have been experiencing persistent power outage for the last 2 months. The Kenya Power Company has been disconnecting customers' electricity supply without issuing prior explanation or notice, thereby breaching its contractual obligation to its customers and creating a lot of inconveniences. Honorable Speaker, the effects of the electricity blackouts are far-reaching to the community, especially during these COVID-19 moments, where the country in a lockdown and citizens are mainly relying on electricity for their daily activities, especially education sectors, small-scale businesses, health, and security. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Energy on the following. Could the chairperson explain why Kenya Power Company has been interrupting and disconnecting customers' electricity supply for hours in Mukuroine constituency without prior notice? 2, what steps has the government taken to ensure that Kenya Power Company does not breach contractual obligations with their customers in Mukuroine and the whole country generally? 3, what measures has the government put in place to ensure consistent provision of electricity by Kenya Power, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
So the chair of Energy is not in the chamber. The request will be channeled through the office of the leader of majority party. The Honorable Wanga, and before the Honorable Wanga makes a request, Sergeant at Arms, I can see a number of empty chairs. Now, nobody should claim that they had been reserved for them 45 minutes after the House commenced. So any other members desiring of coming into the chamber, including the Honorable Wanga, if the Honorable Wanga is desirous of remaining in the chamber, let them be taken to any of the empty spaces. We will not reserve seats for the indolent, those who have chosen to be in the streets and not come into the chamber. They are denying others, and very many others who are desirous of being inside the chamber. So, Sergeant at Arms, you can usher in those members who desire to come in. Nobody should come to claim later that their seats have been allocated. Proceed, Honorable Wanga. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environmental and Natural Resources regarding measures to sustain water and sanitation services provision in the country during COVID-19. Honorable Speaker, in the country, water and sanitation services provision is a constitutional function of the county governments, but in the recent directive by the President, no water provision services should be disconnected during this pandemic period. We know that water provision is provided by licensed services and water services and sanitation companies, which include but are not limited to Homa Bay County Water Services Company, Nairobi, Kisumu, Mandera, and such others. These companies are fully owned by county governments and regulated by the Water Services Regulatory Board. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on the following. What measures has the government put in place to provide subsidies for water companies for at least 3 months for the purchase of chemicals and provision of community water supply and payment of electricity bills for the water companies, Mr. Speaker, given that the directive is not to disconnect even due to non-payment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, secondly, could the government waive fees and levies on all water-related services and provisions during the COVID-19 period? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair of the Committee on Environment, Honorable Kareke Mbiuki. Honorable Wanga, your request. Well, I know, at least we know the Honorable John Bandi has been here. He's just walked out, and he showed a desire to be back. But where you have the seat you have taken has been empty since we began. Channel that request through the Leader Majority's office. Members, that ends the session on request for statements. Honorable Wangwe, are you suggesting you have a request? How come I haven't seen it?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, maybe it could be a clarification as by the Majority Leader, but there was a clarification about the order appearing after this with regard to Committee of the Whole House, a communication from the Committee on Agriculture.
Not yet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
There are responses. It is indicated, but I think the Honorable Julius Melly did indicate that with regard to the statements sought by the Honorable Washiali, the Honorable Sabina Chege, the Honorable Martin Owino, and who was the other one? The one who today. That I think the member for Teso South, Honorable Muse, that you have a meeting with the CS tomorrow. So is it the case? This is my understanding that The response is not now. You have the response for these ones? Yes, for 3. For these 3? Yes. I see. You don't think that they want to cover the request which was made by the member for Teso South? Proceed, Honorable.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. The request or statement by Honorable Sabina Chege, Honorable Jomo Ashali, and Honorable Martin are actually a bit different, but they have covered in part issues concerning e-learning. But the issues that the CS is going to address tomorrow are all these plus more, including the e-learning, which Honorable Musa had asked. So the responses I have here are actually written responses from the CS concerning the questions by the Honorable Member. So I can proceed to read the responses, if that is in order. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, on
you can't bring it now.
29th,
How can you bring the statement when I'm here?
on 29th of April, Honorable Sabina Chege rose on to request for a statement from the CS, Minister of Education. Honorable Majority Leader, you know I'm responding to a statement, and therefore I have to give the detailed version as given by the CS. So,
but if it is too long, just give the salient points.
Salient issues.
Yes, so that because it's a lot of heavy business.
The question was that what measures has the Ministry of Education put in place to address the learning and examination programs for schools, colleges, and universities and other institutions in the country without compromising the educational calendar and subsequent years for the learners, including graduation and other ceremonies. Honorable Speaker, just like in other sectors, COVID-19 situation has also adversely affected the education sector, including the normal learning calendar. Learning institutions has also closed early for the first term holiday. In addition, the opening of the second term has been rescheduled by 1 month, effective from 4th May 2020, as the Ministry continues to monitor the COVID-19 situation and consults with other relevant government agencies before undertaking any further mitigation measures in the sector. In the meantime, the Ministry, through the KICD, is delivering the curriculum through virtual learning and other digital platforms, including TV, radio, Kenya Education, cloud, and digital contents in CD. Universities have also switched to online platforms. The calendar for administering Kenya Certificate of Primary Education and Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination remains unchanged. If the coronavirus persists, thereby precipitating a change in the examination calendar, the Ministry shall take appropriate action and inform the Kenyan public. On the measures which the Ministry is putting in place to address the gap, that is, e-learning is not equitable to all learners due to limited or no access at all to the internet equipment and gadgets and other infrastructure such as in other areas of the country. The CS responded that upon reopening schools, coverage of the curriculum will resume from the point of coverage as at mid-March. This is important because many areas in this country do not have internet, we don't have even the reach of the radio. Honorable Speaker, this will ensure that all learners who do not have access to the e-learning are sufficiently accommodated. In order to ensure that as many learners as possible have access to the out-of-classroom lessons, the Ministry of Education through KICD is using a variety of methods to deliver virtual lessons before COVID-19 pandemic. KICD, in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, have been airing radio lessons for a cumulative of 4 to 5 hours per day. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic period, the radio lessons being aired have been upscaled to 8 hours per day. In order to take care of learners in rural areas, the Ministry of Education through KICD has partnered with over 15 regional radio stations to broadcast the out-of-classroom learning lessons. The use of radio is more prevalent in rural areas, especially where there is no electricity, since dry cell prevalent in rural areas, especially where there is no electricity, since the dry cell batteries have been used to power the radios for many years. Adequate sensitization is also being carried out on continuous basis through mainstream and social media, as well as use of bulk SMS to reach all parents, even those in rural areas, to tune in to the radio lessons for their children. Further, KICD is also using Kenya Education Cloud, where digital items, e-learning materials are uploaded and the learners can access them free of charge. The last question on that is that if the digital e-learning and use of other devices will indeed be enrolled, what measures has the government put in place to ensure effective teaching, dissemination, and learning to all pupils and students in schools, colleges, universities, and other institutions throughout the country in a holistic, cheaper, if not free, equitable, standardized, and qualitative manner? Honorable Speaker, as mentioned in response one above, the Ministry of Education through KICD is providing out-of-classroom lessons to over 15 million learners in both primary and secondary schools without any charges. The pre-recorded lessons are done by qualified teachers who have been adequately trained on the new teaching pedagogies for the competency-based curriculum. These teachers have been offered accommodation at KICD in order to minimize their exposure to COVID-19 as they provide this essential service. To facilitate online capacity building for teachers, especially in the use of technology in teaching and learning, KICD has established Elimika, which is an online portal within the Kenya Education Cloud platform. Through the Elimika online-based training portal, all teachers can be able to enroll for capacity building courses on CBC, ICT integration in teaching and learning, as well as health literacy. The content on teacher orientation lessons for in-service teachers and career sensitization programs is also available in CDs, devices at the Institute, and can also be accessed on education TV channels, Kenya Education Cloud, and YouTube. The ministry, I think those are the main issues. The other question is explain why they say digital learning away from classes will be accessible to those children from extremely disadvantaged families whose parents have neither laptops, smart television sets, smartphones, or even electricity and other sources of power. This is very important because majority of Kenyans are in this category. The Ministry of Education through KICD is providing varied viable options for the extremely disadvantaged families and parents without access to laptops, smartphones, and TV sets or electricity connectivity to access out-of-classroom learning for parents who cannot access TV and online lessons through Kenya Education Cloud and YouTube. KICD has partnered with KBC Radio, Radio Taifa, and English Service with a coverage in all counties to air the out-of-classroom lessons to learners in disadvantaged and remote areas. The advantage of the radio as a communication device is that in the absence of electricity, dry cells batteries can be used to power it. In addition, the KBC radio stations through English Service, Radio Taifa, KICD has partnered with over 35 faith-based and community radio stations that are accessible even to remote areas and informal settlements to broadcast the curriculum lessons and hence ensuring service to over 99% of the country. These include KBC, IFTN, FM, Garissa in Wajir, Radio Akisha in Lodwar, Radio Matume in Kitale, Radio Upendo in Eldoret, Radio Amani and Radio Umoja in Nakuru, Radio Waumini and Radio Maria in Nairobi, Radio Maria in Murang'a, Radio Tumaini in Mombasa, Radio Muchungaji in Maralal, Radio Shadidi in Isiolo, Radio Jangwani in Marakwet, Radio Wenga in Meru, Radio Kimuri in Embu, Radio Solwa in Ngong, Ekoyon FM in Lodwar, Watchman FM in Samburu and West Pokot, and Ejok FM in Turkana, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Laikipia, Isiolo, Marsabit, and many others. Those are the number of radio stations. They are covering most part of the country. Some of these radio stations broadcast within the informal settlements and therefore facilitate access to out-of-classroom radio lessons to the disadvantaged learners in those areas. KICD is also engaging other radio stations with a view to enter into partnership with them to upscale dissemination of out-of-classroom lessons. Those are the questions by Honorable Sabina Chege. Responses. By Honorable Jomo Asiali, 2 responses. Can go over them. Yes. What measures the Ministry of Education put in place to ensure equal access to virtual learning? I think most of these actually repetition almost the same. Yes. Virtual learning by all the learners, especially those living in informal settlements, and I think this one has actually been adequately answered by the earlier response by.
No, it's not that it has been answered, it has been covered.
Yes, covered, yes.
Yes.
I wanted to, yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. This response have actually been covered earlier, in the earlier response, because it is still on virtual learning and out of school, because the students in informal settlements will actually use the radio as advised earlier on. There is one question which is peculiar, question 2, if you'd allow me to read. Could the Ministry confirm that physical infrastructure such as electricity and internet connectivity is available to all learners? And the response is, I wish to confirm that currently, physical infrastructure such as electricity and internet connectivity is not available to all learners. The Ministry has been leveraging on electricity infrastructure that has already been rolled out by the Ministry of Energy, especially with regard to increased connectivity to the national grid through the last mile program and the use of solar panels. The Ministry has also been applying the same strategy by leveraging on the increased internet connectivity by the Ministry of ICT and Broadcasting. The Ministry continues to liaise with the two ministries with a view to taking advantage of any additional electricity connections and internet connectivity so as to reach as many learners as possible. What plans has the Ministry put in place to ensure that e-learning platform is sufficient for preparation of candidates who are due to sit for national examinations? I'll read this because this is a bit peculiar question, and it will be good for members to see what the Ministry is doing. In addition to TV and radio lessons, the Kenya Education Cloud has proved useful, especially for candidates who are due to sit for national examinations at the end of the year. The cloud, whose domain is www.ke.ac.ke, hosts interactive digital content, radio lessons on demand, e-books for all levels, to serve pupils and teachers and online users for teachers on curriculum integration and on use of ICT in learning. Digital uploading from internal sources, that is radio and TV sections of KICD, and external publishers is continuous. All digital content is accessible free of charge during the period of COVID-19 pandemic. In preparation of the programming and transmission schedules for both radio and TV, KICD is paying special attention to the candidates who will be sitting for the national examinations at the end of this year, including increasing the number of subjects covered as well as upscaling the digital revision materials for the candidate classes. The last question is, could the chairperson confirm whether the Ministry has deployed quality assurance teams to assess the coverage and impact of e-learning on learners across the country, and if so, could the chairperson table a report on the same? There is a report here, therefore I want to table it. Quality assurance and standards officers have conducted a survey to gather information on online and media learning. The survey was guided by 5 indicators below: awareness of the radio and television lessons on KICD, quality of teaching being offered via online and media, quality of supervision of learning by teachers, quality of assessment of learning by teachers, role of stakeholders such as teachers, learners, principals, head teachers, and parents. And I have an attached list totaling 1295 responses were analyzed. The question by Honorable Martin Peters Owino. The response is that Honorable Speaker, like what I had also indicated in by one question asked by Honorable Jomo Ansiali, this one also by Honorable Peters is adequately covered. I'll just read this one concerning hygiene, and then the rest is actually was well covered. What preparedness and precautionary measures has the Ministry undertaken to ensure that the government policy and directives on hygiene and social distancing by schools are observed and adhered to later when they reopen in regard to COVID-19 pandemic? The Ministry continues to engage with the National Task Force on COVID-19 and other relevant government agencies from time to time on policy direction and interventions for the prevention of COVID-19 to ensure that policy on hygiene and social distancing by schools are observed and adhered to by schools when they reopen. There is also the issue on commodities. What steps has the Ministry taken to ensure that essential commodities are available and will be distributed to all schools? As indicated in one above, the Ministry will engage the relevant government agencies and National Committee on COVID-19 in ensuring strict adherence to the guidelines issued with the view to facilitating the availability of essential commodities for schools. This will include learning materials, foodstuffs, some of which are currently stored at stores in sub-counties. What measures has been put in place to ensure that fumigation and sanitation of schools that were identified or that are identified and used as quarantine centers are done thoroughly before reopening? The Ministry will liaise closely with the National Committee on COVID-19 and the Ministry of Health with a view to benefiting from its expertise and guidance in fumigating and sanitizing the schools that were identified and used as quarantine centers before reopening. Lastly, would the government consider waiving payment of tuition and exam fees to the needy students who cannot afford, considering that the income of many parents has been diminished by the effects of COVID-19? Honorable Speaker and members, at the moment the government does not charge both tuition and examination fees for KCP and KCSE candidates. The tuition fees is paid by the government in all public primary and secondary schools. In addition, the examination fees is fully paid by the government for candidates in both private and public schools. At the moment, the Ministry has no plans. Or does the Ministry have a plan to engage counsellors to provide guidance and emotional support systems, considering that COVID-19 is shrouded by fear and stigma? Honorable Speaker and members, that at the moment the Ministry has no plans to engage counsellors to provide guidance and an emotional support system for learners. This is mainly due to various constraints, including unavailability of budgetary allocation for the recruitment of such specialists. However, the Ministry will continue working closely with multi-agency team on COVID-19 with a view to ensuring that the learners are accorded all the necessary support that they may require when the schools reopen. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Those are the three responses from the Honorable members. Tomorrow, Honorable members, the CS has actually indicated you will appear before the committee, and if we'll have this, I think we'll have the place. You are actually invited to really come so that we can discuss many of these issues. Thank you.
Well, as you know, the first shot goes, don't raise your hands. The first shot goes to the person who made the request. That is the order, because then it will lose direction. So the Honorable Ashiali, no, the Honorable Sabina Chege. Is there anything you would wish to, any comments you would wish to make regarding the statement that has been made in response to your request?
Yes, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Chair of Education Committee for covering the questions that I asked. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm a mother, and I have children who are going to school.
You are a member here, or you are a mother?
I'm a mother and a member.
Oh, I see.
Yes. And so, Mr. Speaker, this information that the Chair has shared, even the radio stations, I heard him mention one Radio Maria in Murang'a County. That information is not with the people on the ground. Myself, I have no information. I've been trying to search where I can be able to keep my children busy when they're at home, but I don't have that information. So it might be there in papers, Mr. Speaker, but would like to really have a well and thoroughly explained. Even if I tune into Radio Maria, we know like in primary school there's class 1 or grade 1 to grade 8. So what time should I switch on to listen or to have a value for my child who is in grade 2? We also have our children in the secondary school, Mr. Speaker. I heard him saying if the COVID extends, they will decide whether the KCP or KCSE will be done. Mr. Speaker, our children have lost 3 months.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Fellow Kenyans, yesterday I cautioned you that our numbers are likely to rise. Today, we have a new high of 47 persons who have tested positive to the disease. Thus, Kenya now has 581 people who have tested positive from the beginning. In today's number, 32 persons are from Mombasa, while 11 are from Nairobi. We now have 2 cases in Busia, 1 in Kiambu, and 1 in Kwale. Again, the cases in Mombasa are mainly in Old Town, with 18 cases, 18 additional cases being from the Old Town, and 5 additional cases here in Nairobi, again going to Eastleigh. In terms of number, in terms of gender, once again, we have 31 who are male and 16 who are female. We are also lucky today that we have released 8 persons. 8 persons have been discharged, which brings the number of discharged persons to 190. On a sad note, though, I want to inform you that we have lost an additional 2 persons from coronavirus disease in Mombasa, bringing this number to the number of deceased persons to 26. But of more serious concern regarding those deceased persons is that both of them, aged 68 and 72 respectively, actually passed away at home. Now, I'm going to allow Dr. Amos, after my speech, to talk to the danger of persons passing away at home, because it means that a lot other people can get infected that way. Let me also say this. We have got 1 patient in Kenyatta National Hospital who traveled from Tanzania through Loitoktok, traveled with matatus, etc., and is now in Kenyatta National Hospital. This person did not come through the border points, but came through Panya routes. Now, the problem with this is that the citizens, as I have said before, we Kenyans, the people in those areas, are the ones who should actually have reported the sighting of this gentleman. Because, as we well know, the borders are porous, they are lengthy areas, and it is very difficult for police on their own to be able to monitor who is coming across the various areas that we have mentioned. And therefore, when that happens, it is the population that is going to suffer. As I alluded yesterday, we have identified some epicenters where the numbers have continued to grow. These are especially Eastleigh in Nairobi and Old Town Mombasa. The situation in those areas has now become of serious concern. In order to contain the spread of infection in these 2 particular areas, the government has recommended that further containment measures will be followed. Subsequently and pursuant to Rule 3 of the Public Health COVID-19 Restriction of Movement of Persons and Related Measures, Rules 2020, Legal Notice 50, the Ministries of Health and that of Interior Coordination of National Government have directed as follows. there shall be cessation of movement in and out of Eastleigh area of Nairobi with effect from today, the 6th of May, 2020, at 7 p.m. for the next 15 days. There shall be cessation of movement in the area known as Old Town in Mombasa with effect from today, the 6th of May at 7 p.m. for the next 15 days. There will be closure of any markets, any restaurants, and eateries within those two areas. That is, the area of Eastleigh in Nairobi and Old Town in Mombasa, with effect from 6 May 2020 at 7 p.m. for the next 15 days. Further, the government has also said that the cost of targeting testing and quarantine and government quarantine facilities shall be met by the government. Kenyans should therefore forthwith not be afraid. Let me repeat that. Effective today, government quarantine facilities will be occupied by those told to do so by the Ministry of Health. Will be given that facility free of charge. This is to facilitate those who may feel that they do not want to go for testing because of the cost of quarantine. That is no longer the case. These measures are not intended to punish anybody in those affected areas. Rather, these measures are supposed to protect those in those areas who may get the disease from movement of persons. Now, let me explain what that means. It therefore means that movement within those areas, when you are going to buy something, when you are going to unnecessary outing for a few people, if you are going to shop, then you can do so. What you cannot do is to leave the area to go to another area. And this will be clarified, the specific geographical locations will be clarified in the order by the Ministry of Interior Coordination and Interior and Coordination of National Government. Public transportation is not allowed to go into those areas, again for the same reason that we have given. And as I said, and I want to make it clear, is that this cessation of movement is essentially to protect those within those areas and those in the rest of the towns from infection. As we continue to provide protective equipment to our healthcare workers, I also want to urge institutions to be accountable for what they have received. We have observed that some unscrupulous individuals are selling PPEs when delivered to their institutions. I want to warn that such individuals will be arrested and face criminal charges, because that is theft. And not only is it theft, it is theft at a very, very bad time. Before I proceed, there are other measures that we have taken in Mombasa, particularly to do with the area of transportation, and I want to invite CS Macharia to talk to those issues.
Thank you very much, CS Kagwe. Like we said before, public transportation is a very key area in terms of both transmission, but also facilitating economic development. And so we do take measures all the time to make sure that what needs to be done to mitigate any risks which come as a result of transportation system, they are addressed on a timely basis. And so I'd like to say the following. You've heard before about the risk of having the truck drivers, especially the ones carrying cargo into the region, transmitting the virus, say from Mombasa, going to the west in Malaba, and going to other countries in the region. And so, as a region, we have agreed that henceforth, all truck drivers leaving, for example, our country, going into the neighboring countries, have to be tested at least 48 hours before they leave Nairobi or Mombasa. That is important because by the time they get to Malaba, they have to show the certificate that they are COVID-19 free, and that will be mandatory. That also applies to drivers coming from other regions like Uganda and Rwanda. When they get to the border with Kenya, they must produce a COVID-free certificate before they are let into our country. And so, because of this, we would like to also require that all drivers going into Mombasa Port, all drivers going to Nairobi ICD, all drivers going to Naivasha ICD to carry transit goods before they are let into those facilities, before they are let into Port of Mombasa, ICD Nairobi, or ICD Naivasha, they must produce that COVID-free certificate. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to get into the port. Secondly, they have to be tested, like we said before, every 14 days. Every 14 days, so the certificate to be valid for only 14 days. Thereafter, they must show that it's actually been renewed. Let me also say, like what Waziri has said about the port of Mombasa. The port, as you know, has been identified as one of the hot spots. Before COVID, Mombasa Port was employing 6,200 people, members of staff. And so what we decided now, and given directives, is that only the core business, only the core functions will remain at the Port of Mombasa. And this is loading of cargo from the ships, and also loading cargo onto the ships for exports. And so the number of employees at the Port of Mombasa has been reduced from 6,200 to 4,000. The rest of the staff have been asked to stay home, in addition to the ones we've asked to stay home before. For example, we had insisted that anybody above 58 years had to stay home, even if he or she was in a core mandate, core function. And then secondly, we have insisted the other hygiene issues had to be followed very diligently. Washing of hands, sanitizers, non-use of lifts, all those other interventions still continue. Let me also, Waziri, briefly mention about the commuter rail. As you know, we have taken certain measures for matatus. But for the commuter rail, which carries between 40 and 50,000 people every day, that was also identified like a major risk area in terms of transmission. And so what we've done in the last few weeks, we have introduced 40 additional coaches. 40 additional coaches in addition to the 60 which was there before. So this will help in terms of complementing the transport by matatus, and therefore having no excuse for not having social distancing in terms of people using the train and people using the matatus. Also, as you know, a week ago we introduced what we are calling sanitizer tunnel. Anybody boarding the train must go through that tunnel to make sure they are sanitized and to make sure that they don't carry the virus into the train. And then lastly, another area of major risk has been the ferry, Likoni ferry. And social distancing has been one of the key interventions. We have now introduced a brand new ferry which arrived on the 25th of April. which will be commissioned tomorrow to start operations. And therefore, there is no excuse whatsoever for people not ensuring there is social distancing. Because of economic development is critical for us to finance some of these critical aspects, which CS Mutagi Kagwe has mentioned. We have also ensured that we continue exporting our flowers, our horticultural produce, and that's why, in addition to the facilities provided by Kenya Airways, we have approached 12 other airlines to make sure they can complement the 2 freighters which are owned by Kenya Airways. This will make sure that the 350,000 jobs in the flower sector, in the fresh produce, is actually sustained. And we are discussing how this additional capacity will be implemented through this additional 12 airlines, which we have agreed that they supplement in terms of airlifting the cargo for the external destinations. Thank you, Waziri.
Asante sana. One or two additional issues. One of them has got to do with the arrival of some patients. Arrangements have been made for those people who had gone to India at their own costs. Let me add, at their own costs. Some patients will be returning home, I believe, today. And I want to repeat the protocol that we have adopted for returning patients. We have said that all patients coming home will not be quarantined. Instead, they will be allowed and signed for by their doctors so that they can be able to be quarantined by their own doctors in premises that their doctors determine are sufficient to deal with that particular challenge. So we don't want speculation to say so-and-so was released, so-and-so was not. It is persons who are released to their doctors. They are the ones who are given that permission. So there will be those people. Secondly, is just to add that we have noticed also the issue of the curfew. And I want to urge that people do not break the curfew laws or the curfew regulations, because severe action will be taken against them. And I just want to reiterate, please stay at home after 7 p.m. And in addition to that, we are asking our citizens, as we had done earlier, if you do not have to work from an office, work from home. And as I said, it is important for us to do this. It is important for us to practice this. Because for those people who have been saying lockdown, lockdown, essentially that is what it would mean. It would mean that that every person works from home. So we might as well, before a lockdown, or rather than announce a lockdown, we might as well just stay at home and work from home. And we have reiterated this. So nitaka kuongeza hapo kidogo, niwaambie ndugu zetu na dada zetu, wale ambao wako area zile nilitaja, area ya Eastleigh hapa Nairobi, area ya Old Town pale Mombasa, tunajua ya kwamba yale maneno tumetenda itakuwa nguvu kidogo kwenu, ni ngumu kidogo, kwa sababu mtu hawezi kufanya vile amezoea na vile hufanya kila siku. Lakini ni lazima tulinde watu, ni lazima tulinde wa Kenya pahali popote walipo. Na sisi tunajua watu wakifuata sheria, wakifanya vile tunasema, hii virusi itakwamishwa. Hapo ndani ndio wale ambao wameambukizwa na hiyo virusi wawekwe katika quarantine facility. Wakati huo kutakuwa na testing, itaongezwa huko hizo area ya Eastleigh. Tumekuwa huko tukifanya testing, ndio tumeelewa ya kwamba iko hiyo shida. Vile vile tunatembea area zingine, tunajua na tunaendelea kufanya testing area ya Kawangware, na pia tunaangalia ni area zingine, na tukiona virusi imezidi hizo area ni lazima tunafanya vile tumefanya na hapa na area za Eastleigh na Old Town Mombasa. Kwa hivyo tunawasihi watu, tafadhali tufuate sheria, tafadhali tufanye vile serikali inasema, kwa sababu serikali inataka kuona mema akifanyika. Hatutaki kuona watu wakikufa wakiwa nyumbani kwa sababu wanaogopa kupelekwa quarantine. Tafadhali, ukiwa mgonjwa, ukijisikia unasikia ugonjwa, tafadhali nenda hospitali, kwa sababu mgonjwa yeyote lazima alindwe na akiwa ni mama analindwa na mzee, akiwa ni mzee analindwa na mama, basi na yeye pia atapata virusi. Kwa hivyo tafadhalini wacheni tusikize vile Wizara ya Afya inasema na vile serikali inavyosema. We can take one or two questions. Yeah. I'll give him a chance. You can see whether you can reply all of them together.
Particularly during the day, does this mean they don't leave their houses? Which particular businesses will be closed? We know Eastleigh particularly is a business hub. How will this all work out for those who will be affected, to understand clearly how this will be done and whether there will be any repercussions for those found walking around during the day?
The order will be very clear. The order will be given, as I said, by the ministry concerned. They will give an order, but effectively what it means is that you cannot go into Eastleigh, and persons within Eastleigh cannot leave the area of Eastleigh. However, within those areas, there will be certain, as I said, the eateries, the malls, those ones will be closed or throughout that period of 15 days. And mass testing will be continuing. It doesn't mean that you have to stick into your house. Within the area you can walk, but we are urging people not to leave their premises. What we don't want to do is to lock people inside their houses. But we are saying, as much as possible, stay within the house and send somebody. Move out only when you must to get something or whatever. But visitations, gatherings, anything of the kind must not continue. Yes, ma'am.
Here. There is concern that some of the patients who turn positive, or some of the people who turn positive, do not show the signs of COVID. In the numbers, for instance, announced today, the 47, what is then the percentage of asymptomatic patients and the vice versa? Yeah.
You'll deal with that.
Nancy Okware from KBC. You've talked of the reduction of the workforce, especially at the Ports Authority. What will be the implication, especially on the output, and are the members of staff that are going home going to be paid? So I need you to clarify if it's paid leave or what happens. And also the question is, before 7 p.m. So, you may find out that some people may have already started moving out of the estate before 7 p.m. So do you think it's going to be effective? My answer would be
that, I mean, unless you are moving out to go and live somewhere else, you leave your house. You know, I don't understand where will you live if you leave your house. But of course, as you know very well, understanding and knowing Kenyans, it will not surprise me in the least. However, you are not helping anybody, and you are not helping yourself. I've just explained what happened to this gentleman from Tanzania, the one who traveled from Tanzania, and how he has infected persons we are still tracing, you know, in and out of there. So if you have a colleague who is in Eastleigh, lives Eastleigh as we are speaking, to come and stay with you, you would be an extremely foolish person to accept that that person comes and stays with you and they have not taken a test. So it is you who would be exposing yourself to the virus. So I would expect responsibility. I would expect people to behave. I would expect that persons within those areas would themselves want to stay there and take a test to protect themselves and to protect their friends and family.
Yes, that issue about KPA, like I said, the numbers have been reduced from 6,200 to 4,000. In fact, the target is to go as down as 3,500. And what I said was we want to limit to only the core functions. So output of the core functions will not go down because the core functions is about operations of the port. Cargo coming in, all the ships are offloaded, and all the ships going are loaded with cargo. That output will not change. In fact, we like it to go up. However, any auxiliary services which are not critical to the port, those are the ones you have said, those people should actually stay at home. And whether they'll be paid or not, the issue is, where possible, they'll be taking leave. If it's not possible, during this period, KPA will actually pay them because it is not their fault that we have this situation, but hopefully we shall not go for too long. So the numbers will come down. Those who are going home, they'll be paid, but we're only limiting ourselves at the port only on the core functions, which is operations. Cargo in, cargo out.
You take the questions.
Thank you, CS Kagwe, CS Masharia. Just to highlight to you, today we have 222 patients admitted in various facilities throughout the Republic. Out of these 222, one is in critical care at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital on mechanical ventilatory support. 4 at the Coast Provincial Hospital are on oxygen, supplemental oxygen. The rest are in stable condition, and we look forward to their discharge home in the coming few days. Allow me also to digress and mention this matter of the home or community-based deaths. In the past 1 or 2 weeks, we have realized increased cases of deaths at the community level or patients dying upon reaching the accident and emergency unit, especially in Mombasa. And the risk posed by this is usually these are critically ill people. They are usually symptomatic of COVID-19, and therefore they are likely to be shedding very high levels of the COVID-19 virus, therefore making them extremely infectious, especially for those who are close to them, like family members who are taking care of them, or relatives and friends who could come in the spirit of the African culture to visit and condole with a sick person. So our appeal, especially to our colleagues, our friends at the coast, is to ensure that you call 719 in case you are feeling unwell. We still remember the symptoms of COVID-19. One is a dry cough, the other is running a temperature or high fever, and also difficulty in breathing. If you experience any of these symptoms, please call 719. And remember, we have ambulances also stationed in Mombasa, which can quickly respond through the rapid response teams to be able to pick you and take you for healthcare attention. In terms of the numbers reported today, the 46, because this is a small fraction, almost 90% of them were symptomatic, meaning these were people who were just picked by routine targeted testing. It's only 10 of them or so, 10% of them were exhibiting symptoms, and many of them were also exhibiting very mild symptoms. Remember also, we are in the flu season. Kenya has 2 flu peaks. One is from March to May, and the other one starts from around July to September. So it is very difficult to be able to distinguish the ordinary flu from COVID-19 symptoms because they have a similar symptomatology. So it's better to err on the side of caution. Even if you think you have ordinary flu, please call 719 and you'll be given assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Asante Waziri.
institution of parliament that how best to handle this situation. It is a fact, it's an truism, that you cannot possibly expect every child in every time. Because you cannot say you will not, schools are going to continue being closed. Nobody knows when this pandemic is going to be away. So the issues raised by the Honorable Martin Owino will also need to be addressed. Many of the classrooms in the rural areas have been constructed using the CDF. It's a fact. Even those further facilities have been also purchased through CDF in many constituencies. So it is only fair that a cabinet secretary and whoever else that sits with him to advise is made aware by yourselves. If and when at all